Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. And we are now about a week into free agency and still waiting on the Seahawks to do something. Still waiting on Trenton Brown news. Still waiting on Rashad Penny news. I haven't heard anything new. So we're just sitting here waiting. And given the fact that the initial wave of free agency has come and passed, I think it's time to start turning some of our focus towards the draft. It's about, 6 weeks away now? Something like that. And it's time to start thinking about what the Seahawks might do. And on my community tab, you can actually see an upload schedule I have for the next several weeks where I'm going to make videos going into the prospects that the Seahawks might be interested in and try to figure out who I like and who I don't like and who I would advocate for. And I want to, before we get into that stuff, because I know maybe some of you guys are interested in the draft, but you're not, you don't want to deep dive into hundreds of players. Maybe you're just here for the main event. Maybe you're not into the undercards. Maybe you just want the main event. And the main event is that we actually have a top 10 pick this year for the first time in coming up now on 12 years. So I want to talk about that a little bit before we get into the content of this video. So the Seattle Seahawks have been a terrible drafting team for the last 9 years now. They have been, in my opinion, a bottom 5 drafting team. I look at their draft classes. I look at every other team's draft classes. I feel like we're bottom 5. And that's why you find yourself in this situation where you have gone from a team that went to back-to-back Super Bowls to a team that can just flat out miss the playoffs and go last place in their division. But as much as that is inexcusable, as much as that shows that this front office has lost their ability to scout effectively, that they've frequently tried to outsmart everyone else and only managed to outsmart themselves, and while there's no excuse for that, one thing that I do want to say is that part of the problem has been you haven't had great picks to utilize. And if you take a look at this chart, you'll see what I'm saying. The last time the Seahawks had a top 10 pick was 2010. Russell Okung, number 6 overall. In 2010, Matt Hasselbeck was still our quarterback, long time ago. The last time this team had a pick in the top 15, the top half of the draft, the top 20 even, was 2012 Bruce Irvin, before Wilson was our quarterback. So it has been quite some time since we've had an asset like the number 9 overall pick. And I want to take this video to talk about that number 9 pick a little bit because it's you really are showing up to the draft room this year with way more ammo than you typically do. And that is going to help this front office hit a little better. And it's not just because the picks are higher. It's not just a linear growth thing. It's not as simple as that. When you're picking high in the draft, there are fewer players that you're picking from in terms of the pool of players that you can reasonably pick at that spot. And I think part of the problem with the Seahawks front office lately, and there have been a lot of problems, but I think part of it is that if you take a look at their picks since they won the Super Bowl, well, half the time they don't even have a first-round pick, but when they do, 31 overall, 27 overall, 29 overall, 27 overall. Now, sometimes they trade down. In fact, quite frequently they trade down, so some of that is on them. But the picks they trade down from are never that high. I don't think we've had a pick in the teens since Bruce Irvin. So I have to say that when you get to that second half of the first round, the pool of players gets much bigger that you can justify taking. Like, some of the guys that go in the second half, especially late first round, they're usually top 100 prospects. But that top 100, that includes all the second round and most of the third, and well, all of the third round guys pretty much. So when you get down to that area of the draft, it's not just the Seahawks that take crazy, nutty, insane picks. It's other teams do it too. But you almost never see it at the top of the draft. You might see it once or twice a year. every now and then a team will come out of nowhere off the top rope and take somebody nobody was thinking of at that spot. But the deeper you get into the draft, the more those picks happen, because at that point you're just thinking about, I want to get this player. If I reach for him a little bit, I don't really care that much. Whereas when you're picking in the top 10, reaching actually matters a lot, because the difference in ability between those blue chip guys at the top and then the more mid-level players is massive. So a top 10 pick, which is what we have this year, is a lot harder to misutilize. You might draft a bad player. You might draft a bust. It happens. But you're going to take a guy that is pretty much a consensus blue chipper. And there is value in that. So let me just say that first of all. Yes, we have a terrible front office that doesn't know how to draft at all, but it will be easier for them with a top 10 pick. All right, so with that in mind, I want to talk about some of the guys the Seahawks will probably consider drafting in the upcoming draft with their top 10 pick. And I'm going to stick to positions of big and obvious need. I'm going to stick to positions where it makes sense to spend a top 10 pick on. And I'll just run through the prospects and give a brief overview of them. And if maybe you're not overly familiar with the draft class this year, this will be a little primer. And if you are, then maybe you feel differently about this than I do. But let's start with quarterback. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. It ate my category selector. But anyway, okay, let's start with quarterback then. To me, there's only one quarterback in this draft that is worth considering at number 9 overall, and that is Malik Willis. He has become, by most people, the highest valued quarterback in this draft. And I'll say it straight up, he may not even get to number 9. The Lions at number 2, the Giants pick 5 and 7, the Panthers pick at 6, the Falcons even. If they move on from Matt Ryan, or decide they are going to move on from Matt Ryan, you may see Malik go. To me, I will acknowledge this. This is a product of the fact that the QBs in this draft are kind of bad. Malik Willis, if he was in last year's draft, I think would not have even been a first rounder. But in this draft, he may be a top 10 pick. And he's the only guy who I think can justify that on any level. You watch him play, you look at his tape, he makes you think of Deshaun Watson, makes you think a little of Lamar Jackson. Maybe he gives you a little bit of Trey Lance vibes. Maybe even young, slightly faster Russell Wilson. Great outside the pocket, great scrambler, great mobility, makes plays, extends plays. Impressive arm strength, he's got a big arm. Very little experience in the NFL, not even NFL, at the NCAA level. 2 years of starter at Liberty. Not even a big school, not playing against the best competition, although not playing with the best teammates either. And he's a project to me, but he is the one guy with enough talent to potentially justify taking in the first round in this particular draft. There are some other guys who I think are probably going to go in the first round, Kenny Pickett and Desmond Ridder. Matt Corral and Sam Howell have a chance to be first-round picks, but I don't see any of those guys as being number 9 overall worthy. So, to me, if you want the quarterback in this draft, the guy is Malik Willis. And, look, as much as I don't think Malik Willis is, in a vacuum, worthy of a top 10 pick, having the quarterback is so important in this league that if you get him at number 9 and he ends up being really good for you, then it is worth it. Because a quarterback is just that important to your team's success. So if you like him, get him. All right, next up, we're going to take a look at offensive tackles. And there are some interesting guys here. Sorry about that. It keeps eating my category selector. And we've got a handful of guys here. This is actually a really good draft for tackles, especially at the top. Left tackle, there are 2 guys. One guy will almost certainly not get to us, Ikem Ekwonu from North Carolina State. I can't imagine him slipping out of the top 5. He's a prospect with very little to criticize, great left tackle prospect. He's got the size, he's got the frame. He's going to almost certainly be an excellent left tackle in the NFL. The guy that I'm actually really targeting here at number 9 would be Charles Cross. Great prospect, he's got the size, the build, the frame. He's got some decent mobility, great pass protector, also very good as a run blocker as well. So Charles Cross from Mississippi State, to me, would be maybe my favorite guy to take at number 9 overall right now. Probably my favorite potential pickup for the Seahawks right now if they keep that number 9 pick. So you replace Dwayne Brown. He should be able to start day one. He's going to make mistakes, as all rookies you can expect them to do. But without Wilson out there, we can live with that probably. There are 2 other guys that are expected to be first-round selections in this draft. But to me, they're both more right tackles. Now, one is Evan Neal, and he's such a good prospect. He's huge. He has good mobility despite his size. He might be worth it anyway. Evan Neal, I admit the fact that he's a right tackle and might even end up playing guard in the NFL is a little... It puts me a little on shaky ground here. I look at Evan Neal and I say, do I really want to spend a top 10 pick on a right tackle or a guard? Maybe if they become the best right tackle or the best guard in the NFL, but otherwise I'm going to kind of feel like I should have spent the pick at a position of more import. But Evan Neal would probably be worth it because he projects to be best in the league, all-pro status at right tackle or guard to me. The other guy would be Trevor Penning. To me, he's kind of the same thing. I look at him and I see a little bit more of a right tackle, but a potentially great right tackle out of Northern Iowa. Great run blocker. Not a perfect pass blocker either, but not bad either. Not bad at all. I'm not really on that wagon. I'm not really on the spend a top 10 pick on Trevor Penning wagon. I would be a little more inclined if maybe you traded down to the teens. But if you're going to stay at number 9, I feel like you need to do a little bit better. I need a little bit more of a blue chipper, a little bit more of an all-around player. I'm just not quite there yet with Trevor Penning. Okay, let's jump over to the interior offensive line. There's really only one guy here. It's Tyler Linderbaum. He is the center prospect that you dream of if you're a center enthusiast. He's center for Iowa. He can do it all. He's got tremendous strength, great fundamentals, great technique, great mechanics as a center, plays in space, can move, has agility, great fit for Waldron's offense, great fit in his own scheme. He's about 290 pounds, well below 300, so he's not packing too much weight to play on the move, which that's important. And even though we just gave Austin Blythe a contract, it's small and it's short term. So, excuse me. Honestly, I think you can move down a few spots and still get Linderbaum, but he's such a good center prospect that I wouldn't even hate taking him number 9 overall. He is a rare top half of the first draft quality center prospect for me. And I would be okay getting him at number 9. That's really the only guy on the interior offensive line. Now we're going over to the defense. Honestly, I think the defense is probably a little more fun than the offense in this draft. So we're going to look at edge players first. So specifically for the Seahawks, we're talking about 3-4 outside linebackers. And this draft has a lot of them, and a lot of them at the top. Now, Aiden Hutchinson's never going to be there at number 9. Forget about it unless he gets filmed hotboxing in his car or something, or he gets Laramie Tunsold or Lyle Collins. He's never getting to 9. But these next 3 guys could. You've got Kevon Thibodeau from Oregon. Very twitchy, freak athlete. Absolute superstar potential. Little bit of a space case off the field. It seems like there are some minor concerns about him from the combine. But there's no doubting his talent. If he does slip a little bit in the draft because of the combine, and he goes from a top 5 pick to a top 10 pick and you can get him, no complaints from me if he can figure out some of the off-the-field stuff. He's got the raw athletic ability to be an all-pro level edge rusher, in my opinion. The next guy would be Jermaine Johnson from Florida State. Little bit better off-field than Thibodeau at this point. Thibodeau, there are some questions there. Jermaine Johnson, I don't really have any questions there. My main question with him would just be playing the run. I think that Jermaine Johnson is going to be a phenomenal pass rusher in the NFL, pretty much as close to a sure thing as you can get there. I don't know about him against the run yet, but that's something he can learn. And he's a great, great prospect for being an outside linebacker in a 3-4. And the last guy is Trayvon Walker. Georgia, edge, same stuff. Little heavier than the other guys, but I still think he can play in space. All three of these guys would be awesome at number 9, I think. Honestly, as for the order you'd put them in, I think it's just up to personal preference. I have a feeling that if you went to every team's big board, every NFL team's big board, they would have these 3 guys all in different orders, depending on their taste, depending on their mood, depending on their the just about anything. But to me, all 3 guys are kind of on the same level in terms of how I value them as a prospect right now. And if we got any of them at number 9, I would feel like that's good value. Now, there is great value later in this draft at edge as well, like in the mid-second. So if you don't get one of those 3 guys, I'm not shedding a tear because I believe you can do really well later in the draft. But those 3 guys are all worthy of being top 10 picks. The last position we're going to take a look at here is cornerback, and this is a loaded cornerback draft class. You've got 3 guys who could very reasonably go number 9 overall, and nobody would be like, oh, whoa, what the heck did the Seahawks just do? You've got Derek Stingley Jr., Andrew Booth Jr., and Ahmad Sauce Gardner. Now, here's the thing. Stingley Jr. from LSU and Booth Jr. from Clemson, both more man corner. You look at them, you look at the way scouts look at them, they're probably going to be better in a man defense. And we've been running zone for a long time. We've been running zone since Carroll got here. That's his thing. He runs zone. However, Clint Hurt Jr. did come out earlier this year and say we're going to do a little bit more man stuff this year. So I got to ask, how much man stuff? Is the man you're going to be implementing into this defense this year enough to justify spending a top 10 pick on a corner when we have spent the last several years, well, decade plus, getting passable to elite corner play without spending those top end picks? Because other than Shaq Griffin, Carroll has never spent a top 100 pick on a corner, and we've always done pretty well at corner. Richard Sherman, 5th round pick, became the defining corner of his era. Byron Maxwell, I think, was a 6th round pick. He was great for us. You've got guys like Shaq Griffin. He made a Pro Bowl for us. He was barely a top 100 pick. Sidney Jones, he picks up for a 6th rounder, turns him to a quality starter. DJ Reed off the 49ers scrap heap becomes a really good outside corner starter. So if you're going to go up to Pete and say, okay, we're going to let you take a corner number 9 overall, is this corner going to give you enough value in this new defense with his mostly man skill set to be worthy of it? Or do you get Ahmad Sauce Gardner, who is a zone corner and basically was molded out of clay by Pete Carroll to play in his zone defense? Perfect corner for what Carroll does. Easily could be the next Richard Sherman. But that's still a big asset to give up to get him. So that's really about it that I can see from this draft. Those are the guys I would consider taking number 9 overall if I were the Seahawks. Kyle Hamilton to me is off the board now because we gave Quandre Diggs all that money. I think that there are guys like Devin Lloyd, but I just don't want to spend another 1st round pick, much less a top 10 pick on an inside linebacker. And that's really about it in terms of even the debatability of it all. I don't think there are too many other players that are serious considerations at this point in time at number 9 overall. For my take, honestly, my favorite is probably Charles Cross right now. I'm really high on the prospect of getting one of those edge rushers I talked about, but I'm also aware that the edge rushers in the 2nd round are going to be aces as well. There are some guys I really, really like there. You might even double dip in the 2nd round, and then you don't need to spend the 1st rounder on them. I really like Ahmad Sauce Gardner as a fit in Carroll's defense. As a zone, like I said, he's a perfect zone corner. So if you're still going to be running that zone defense, which when you re-sign Sidney Jones, that kind of tells me that you are going to be doing the zone defense again. He's perfect for it, but I have to ask myself, do I want to spend a number 9 pick on a cornerback when I know that Carroll has built his career out of finding guys late in the draft, UDFA, free agency garbage heap, and turn them into good players? Do I want to make that commitment? I'm not so sure. And the Malik Willis thing, I'm really torn on the Malik Willis thing. I have a lot of conflicting thoughts there. And Linderbaum, I think you would actually trade back a little bit for and get. But those are my personal thoughts. My favorite is Charles Cross. My second favorite would probably be Thibodeau. And we'll talk a lot more about these guys going forward, but I just wanted to give you guys a little taste, a little sneak preview. And let me know what you guys think. Is there anybody I'm forgetting? Was there anybody else you would spend a number 9 overall pick on? Do you not like anybody here? Would you just trade down? Are there only a few guys you like here and you would trade down if they're not there? Just let me know. But that's how I see it right now. We got one quarterback. We got a few tackles. We've got one center. We got a few edge players and a few corners. I don't see anybody else on the list. All right. Peace out. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think.